ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker for the day is Dr. Ali Alhakami, founder and president, Inma Education, social and human development expert, former CEO of Tatweer Company for Educational Service and Director General, King Abdullah Project for Public Education Development, Tatweer. Current work focuses on educational reform, assessments and evaluations, happiness and well-being in school and the workplace. Let's go ahead and welcome him on board. A very warm welcome, sir.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning. I'm happy to be with you today, and thank you for the organizers for inviting me to speak. I will be speaking English because this was the requirement of the organizers, so I hope they are providing translation. My talk is about promoting happiness and well-being in schools. And the topics that I will be covering in this presentation are challenges facing our schools, happiness in our life in general, and the impact of happiness on students and schools. And I'll be talking about one approach to happiness, which is presented by positive psychology literature and positive education. And then I will talk about some ideas about how to make our schools happier, and whether in teaching or in the curriculum, and some strengths that we should focus on to make our schools and our lives in general happier. First of all, let's think about some of the challenges that our schools are facing today. And anybody who's working in education, not in a specific region, in a specific country, but around the world, will face some common challenges. One of it is the low motivation and engagement of students. So a lot of researchers reported that students, large percentage of them are not very motivated, not engaged in the school, and sometimes isolated from the school. And that has become more prevalent with the COVID-19 and what the consequences that resulted from it. Also, how to provide psychological well-being. And I will be talking about some statistics about mental disorders that some young people face in their early life, and also physical well-being. Some schools suffer from violence, bullying, and radicalization of extreme ideas. And also a lot of teachers report, and a lot of principals, the lack of discipline and respect for teachers and for the school staff, negative attitudes and pessimism with everything in life. So you see students bored, pessimistic, and negative relationships, and adapting to technology and online teaching, which is a new challenge that has been emphasized by the COVID-19 pandemic. Those challenges, as I said, facing schools all over the world and not specific to one area. If we look into psychological disorder in young age, we'll find that some statistics report that 2% of children 11 to 15 suffer from depression. 11% of young people aged 16 to 24 suffer from major depressive disorder, and 20% of children had depressive episode before they reach the age of secondary school. So we find that this is, if we understand that the more suicide is linked very much with depression, and some reports says that 90% of suicides or suicide attempts are caused or linked to depression, we find out what is the big problem here and how we should intervene in our schools and our homes to make it happier. So, of course, pursuit of happiness is a fundamental human need, and happiness in our life is associated with a lot of positive outcome. Optimism is associated with reduced risk of some diseases. Optimism also can have benefits for overall health and can reduce risky behavior. So that just to show you that when we focus on happiness in our schools and our communities, the return is very high on the welfare and the well-being of the society and the economy in general. When we talk about happiness, some people think about it as, how do you feel right now? Do you feel happy? Do you feel when there is a positive event happen to you? That's good, that's important, but that's not the happiness we are talking about. What we are talking about is happiness as a way of life, as how we enjoy life in general, the well-being. And I'll talk more about that later. But let's take this issue with schools. Martin Seligman, which is who is the founder of positive psychology, asked hundreds of parents, what do you most want from for your children? So parents, they want their children to be happy, to be confident, to be balanced, to have a good life, good stuff, kindness, health, satisfaction, and ideas like this. But if you look at most schools, what do they teach? They teach achievement, they teach thinking skills, success, conformity to rules, literacy, mathematics, discipline, and the like. So you can see the difference in expectation between what we as parents want for our children's future to be happy in brief, and what school is focusing on the academics, not on the mental health, not on the happiness of the child. So of course we should focus on academics and skills. That's very important, but that's not the only aim or the only function of education. The only function of education is the whole character, the whole human being, whether the emotional aspect, the mental aspect, the physical aspect. And if we neglect or not pay the attention that we should pay to one area, the child will not have a healthy life or happy life. And so you look at this picture, this child said, rather than great books, could you show me the mediocre but fun to read books? And now that picture is like 20 years ago, when books were the primary source for enjoyment. But now with video games and with the whole social media, we are in education is competing with fun stuff, with stuff that make this child happy and enjoying. So if we do not change the way we approach education, then we have an issue here. We are competing with a technology, with the media that's really drawing our children attention, their thinking, their feeling and drawing them from school, from their families. So what we need is to redesign our curriculums and to reform our schools to become more attractive for kids, more attractive for them to find stuff that's enjoyable. And by enjoyable, I don't mean play, which is very important also in the child life, but learning itself has to be fun. Unfortunately now, with gamification and all the virtual technologies, we find that's become an easier to have education, to have the curriculum aligned with these approaches to be more like games, like which drawing the children. And the basic question here, why do the children spend a lot of time playing games? Because those games are designed on a psychological principles. They give immediate feedback. They give rewards. If you do a mistake, you go back and then you have to do it again. And there is interim goals, and there is final goals, and there is competition, and there is a board where you see yourself, where you fit, but among hundreds of thousands of children playing. So all of these principles are the principles of psychology of motivation. So the people who designed the games, they knew how to attract students using our field, which is education and psychology. But we are the owners of that field, or the people who are specialists in that field. We are not using that in designing our learning experience. So we should go back. Now, what we are doing now is going back to games and studying games and why games are more fun, and try to mimic that and put it in education, where all it started in psychology and education. So you can see the pictures, the difference between these two girls. The girl on the left of the screen is like feeling like school as a prison. Obviously she's not happy, but the girl in the right is happier and seems to be enjoying school. So why? What is the issue here? So when we talk about the impact of happiness on students, we find that happiness is linked with better achievement. Happiness is linked with more motivation. People are eager. I remember when I was in high school, we had a teacher that is really, really enjoyable. He makes jokes, he respects students, and that particular teacher, I go to school to attend the class of that particular teacher. So motivation is experience, the experience we get when we reach our schools. And higher engagement, doing learning, doing homework, and other school activities, and more productivity and less behavioral problems like smoking, like violence, bullying. So happier students are associated with less of that. Now, positive psychology, a new area in psychology that really we can use it to provide us with a framework for creating positive school culture, or what we call positive education. It's a scientific study that focuses on the strength of the human being and enable individuals and communities to thrive. The field is founded that we all look for happiness and to lead meaningful and fulfilling lives, and to cultivate what is best within ourselves, and to enhance our experience of love, work, and play. So this is the nature of human being, and this field is focusing on the strength of the human being rather than the traditional approach to psychology, which focuses on behavioral problems. This is just picture of Martin Seligman, who is the founder of positive psychology, who has written several books and keep writing and focusing also on education. So the book on the left is about optimistic child. Optimism has a very great impact on the child well-being. And when again, we go back to what is happiness. Happiness is not what is reported in surveys like I'm happy or after a specific event. Happiness is a way of life. So now we focus about well-being and well-being theory that put forward by Martin Seligman, which includes specific elements like positive emotion, engagement, meaning, positive relationship or accomplishment. And this model is called the Perma Model. And the aim of this theory is to increase flourishing of the human being, flourishing of communities, flourishing of the world in general. And it doesn't use subjective self-reports only, but use observation, use indicators. So you hear now about the World Happiness Index. The World Happiness Index is not built in a survey. It's built on some specific indicators about the health, about the well-being of the citizens. So this is the Perma model, which is very important that we take this model, we enhance it, we try to apply it to school. And by positive emotion, what we mean is feeling positive, such as joy, gratitude, interest, hope, and that's more than just smiling. And engagement, being absorbed in activities that use our skills and challenge us. So now, if we look at our students, our children, they are not engaged because they don't spend a lot of time focusing on a specific task, like homework, like doing reading. And the reason is the low level of engagement because of the distractions I've talked about that is drawing their attention. Relationships are very important for happiness, to have good relationships within the school, with teachers, with the school principals, and with everybody in the school, with their colleagues in the school. Meaning, this is very important as an element for happiness. Belonging, serving something that people believe that's bigger than themselves. So to have a goal in life, to have something to strive for, and also accomplishment, the feeling of success, the feeling of winning, achievement, and mastery. So this approach to schooling and to life in general emphasizes strength. So everybody has a specific strength. Every student has specific strength. We have to capitalize on that strength and not focus on the weakness itself when we deal with children in schools. So individuals have the ability to grow more than correct their mistakes or enhance their or become deal with their weaknesses. We all can work on the positive more than we change our negative behavior. So this approach to life and to education does not neglect weakness, but it increases strength. So you have specific strength, as I will talk about it. You try to improve it. So the scholars who are developing these ideas about strength has developed this via classification of strength. So strength is 6 major categories: wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. So within each, they put specific strength. So let's take under humanity, kindness. kindness, this approach, we take the strength that appears in the child, and there is specific scales to measure these, and focus on kindness. Because if you focus on kindness, you will affect even other strength. You will affect fairness. You will affect forgiveness. And so nobody has all of these strengths. All of us has some of it. We have to emphasize that in our children. So now, when we talk about positive education, we are moving from focusing only on academic work and preparing students for higher education and career to focusing also on preparing students for happy and flourishing life. Education, now it has to move from the way it presented in most schools to more positive education, positive culture. So this enable the learner to engage in the curriculum and to acquire the knowledge that help them to become, to have happiness and well-being in the school. And the fundamental goal of positive education is to promote flourishing or positive mental health within the school and the community. And how do we do that? What makes our schools happy? Quality relationships. Quality relationships is very important. Focusing on strength and flexible learning and providing support for all, and assessment for learning. And I can talk days about assessment for learning, because assessment is one source of anxiety, one source of making students not happy, not because people do not want to be assessed, but because the way we assess. So emphasizing a lot of summative assessment that is done at the end of the year, for example, and making judgment about the student's success and failure about one test or two tests, rather than doing formative assessment and giving immediate feedback. That can be a source of happiness in the school, and fun and engaging activities. So how can happiness be taught and learned? There are three approaches. Some programs teach happiness. So there is a specific programs design and specific curriculum, like the PEN resiliency program. Those teach in a specific time, teach some skills related to happiness. The other approach, more fruitful, I think, is the embedding happiness within the curriculum. So within activities, rather than making it as a separate subject. And the third is living happiness. The school itself, the culture, the curriculum, the way of teaching the children relation with each other is promoting living happiness. And there are models now, there are schools that has started doing that, and they're very successful. So including the concept related to optimism, hope, mindfulness, gratitude, should be essential in all subjects across the curriculum. And let's now, each of you in their own school, let's analyze how many times we talk about optimism, how many times we talk about hope, mindfulness, gratitude in our curriculum. That's very important element. Practicing mindfulness and monitoring our own behavior. We should teach our children how to be mindful of their behavior, their thinking. Training students on self-control and empathy to other, and feeling the other people problems and suffering, and positive emotion such as optimism or any other positive emotion in contrast to pessimism and anger and hate. So these are all negative emotions. Focusing on extracurricular activities on building psychological strength. So instead of extracurricular activities, focusing only on play or on some activities that students love, we should also discover what is the strength of each child and gear the specific extracurricular activities on building those skills. So a child who is high in humanistic approach or kindness, for example, we should focus our extracurricular activities with that child on helping communities, helping those who are sufferers. So, as I said, this is a package. If you focus on one strength, the effect will it has a ripple effect on other strengths. And being a role model for our students in dealing with stress. So we as teachers, we are as principals, we should always be model. We are under one of the most stressful jobs that source of stress. Teaching and managing schools is one of the highest in those in that list of stressful careers. So, but we have to learn, we have to have discipline as educators on how to deal with stress and try to control our negative emotions. And I analyzed, several cases of problems in school, violence and children or adolescents sometimes attacking the school or the teacher or their property, their cars. And I tracked it and I found some of them related to negative emotion instigated by the teacher or the school staff. So I'm not blaming the school staff. They also deserve a lot of help. They deserve psychological intervention and a lot of psychological support. So I'm not going to go into more detail in that, but there are a lot of areas we can talk about: optimism versus pessimism in children. We can talk about gratitude, saying thank you, sending gratitude letter, being thankful of the things, nice things in life that you have as a person, writing those down and reviewing them. We can also talk about grit, which is the perseverance and keeping working and having emotional attachment to what we do. And also we can talk about growth mindset, and we teach growth mindset also in schools, which is the belief that we can grow, we can learn even at an old age. In contrast to fixed mindsets, people believe that they are not smart, they are not, which is most of IQ tests, intelligence tests, try to put in their people mind. If you are measured as average in your IQ, most people will tell you that you will continue as an average. That's not true. Intelligence grows with age, with experience, and with learning, with more. So that's the growth mindset. And resilience is dealing with failure, learning how to become stronger after each failure. And there are also approaches on how to teach resilience and train students to be more resilient. I try to talk, in general about the field. This is a whole field that deserves a lot of attention from educators and policymakers. And you have here my email and my Twitter account, Psychology for You. You are welcome to send for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for the wonderful session. It was very interesting and definitely a lot of insights. We have a few questions from the audience. I have put that on the chat. The first question is, remote learning has had an impact on social behavior of students and teachers. How can schools make sure the happiness factor is understood or measured in the remote learning environment? Do you have any views and thoughts?
Yes, this is very good question, and I was going to talk about it, but the limitation of timing. I think remote learning and online learning has put a new challenge to our schools and our children and our families. You find now the loss of human interaction, the loss of immediate feedback, the lack of participation sometimes, and keeping, even the physical movement. It's less when you do online learning. People do not feel, move as much as if they are in a regular classroom or as in a regular school. And although I see my grandson, attending these schools, and he's upside down, or he is, moving. That shows the need of movement of these children. They cannot sit still. And also, a lot of research done in this area found that cognitive overload, not only for students, but for teachers. They actually work more teachers for on this kind of learning, and in anxiety also. So how to deal with that? We should recognize that there is a problem. And the educational systems should support. And now what we are seeing in online platform, they are becoming more humanistic. They are becoming more, they are paying more attention to these specific needs. So people are changing. Technology companies and online learning platform providers, they are changing. I think we will reach a point where we do a great progress, especially with the use of virtual reality. And that's, I think, the future. We will correct a lot of these. But I would like also to emphasize that families suffer also with this mode of learning, especially dual career families, and it's been found that parents became more engaged in their student schooling with homework and observing the child. So all of this mean we need to do a lot of counseling to parents.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ali. So, Dr. Ali, we do have a lot of delegates from across the world, from different countries. We've had a lot of questions pouring in, but keeping in mind of the time constraint we have a hard stop now. But what I'll do is I'll ask all the delegates, I'll send them your email address so that they can shoot out any questions to you. And definitely, you can share your insights and valuable thoughts as well with them. It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much for the insights you've provided. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
A session full of energy and enthusiasm. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing the valuable inputs. Thank you so much.